Hello, I'm Peter Goodman. I'm the publisher of Stonebridge Press. Now, in these videos, I'd like to talk about some of the books we're publishing at Stonebridge and also some of our older backlist titles. It's hard for me to believe, but we've been around about 30 years, and usually our books just go out into the shops and in the hands of readers, and I never really get a chance to talk about why we published a particular book or any background on its editorial or design or the authors or what place it has in our hearts. So that's what we're going to start doing here. And today I want to talk about a book we published some 24 years ago. And that is pretty early on in our existence. And the book is still in print, which is kind of remarkable. The book is called Hojoki. And I'm choosing it because of its theme, which you may be able to figure out in part from its subtitle, Visions of a Torn World. Because our world too at this moment now is torn. It's first with the COVID pandemic and now with the challenges to our society that have once again resurfaced as a result of the George murder in Minneapolis. All of us are stressed. We're surrounded by sickness in our loved ones and a sense of uncertainty, and especially that our social institutions too are morbidly unhealthy in a way. Now, the subtitle, Visions of a Torn World, was added by the translators Yasuhiko Moriguchi and David Jenkins, who were both poets and translators who were living in Kyoto at the time. The torn world for the author, Kamo-no-Chomei, was a world of uncertainty, chaos, and natural calamity that existed in Kyoto back in the 1100s. 1,000 years ago. Kamo-no-Chomei was the son of a very distinguished family of Shinto priests. He eventually embraced Buddhism, which may have precipitated a falling out with his father. And in his later years, Chōmei, who had been living in Kyoto, the capital city of Japan, left it to build himself a very small hut measuring only 10 feet square, the Hojo of the title. And from this tiny hut, Chōmei reflected back on the various events that had befallen Kyoto and the destruction and unhappiness and misery that had caused its citizens. Their world was, in a word, torn, and Chōmei reflected on how their abrupt loss of their possessions and of the lives of their loved ones had led them to sorrow. Buddhism, on the other hand, offered an escape from suffering through detachment and a lack of desire. Now, here's a typical passage from the book showing the wonderful poetic qualities that the translators have brought to the work, and that's one of the reasons that we ended up publishing it. Men of means have much to fear. Those with none know only bitterness. If you entrust yourself to the care of others, you will be owned by them. If you care for others, you will be enslaved by your own solicitude. If you conform to the world, it will bind you hand and foot. If you do not, then it will think you mad. And so the question, where should we live and how? Where to find a place to rest a while? And how bring even short-lived peace to our hearts? But at the end of this passage, there's a surprise because Chōmei he's really finding himself a bit too attached to his own detachment, which maybe strikes us as an astonishingly modern kind of self-awareness. Now, the entire book, including the preface, it's a very short read, maybe just 40 minutes. And it's much more satisfying to read the verse section out loud, as I've just done here in that brief excerpt, where you can really hear the cadence and slow down to grasp the imagery. And talking about images, the book includes brushwork by Michael Hoffman, who's an American artist who at the time was living in Kyoto. That's one of his works there. He was in Kyoto at the time, but he's since returned to the States. And one more thing about the design, it has kind of a tall, thin look, as you can see. And this was driven by the fact that the text largely consists of very short lines of verse. You know, if we'd made the book conventionally wide, we would have had to make the text a lot larger to avoid a kind of visual imbalance on the page. And with a thinner book, then, more narrow in other words, we get to stage the verse a lot better. And this also kind of forced us to use a fairly small typeface, or it enabled us to use a small typeface, which in turn forced us to use more spacious leading in the prose introduction. So as you can see, this is kind of unusual. It has very small type on the page, but the leading is wide, so it makes it quite readable. And one of the Bay Area's most distinguished cover designers, a guy named Dave Bullen, who at the time was a neighbor of mine, he did the cover. And again, that's using art by Michael Hoffman. So we're going to be offering free copies of Hojoki for a limited period of time. And we hope you'll grab a copy and use it to guide you through your own thoughts and feelings as you deal with the uncertainty of our present moment. I'm not really suggesting you go out and build a hut in the woods to live in, but maybe take a walk in the park or even do some forest bathing. That might be soothing. So for more information, see the link in the notes and be sure to subscribe to our channel for future videos. And on behalf of Stonebridge Press, thanks for reading our books. I'm Peter Goodman. Thanks for watching.